Every room starts the same way, one room, one interface, and a plan that lives entirely in your head, right up until the moment the room asks for more than that a single connection can carry, and then, before a single note gets recorded, you are already on your knees behind the desk, hunting for one free cable. Then comes the real problem. There is no free input left. The take waits while you unplug something you were already using, and the whole session loses its momentum. Or the monitor mix drops out halfway through the take. Latency does not just cost you time, it costs you the performance you were never going to get back. Meanwhile, a rack of genuinely good analog gear sits quietly in the corner. Compressors, preamps, an actual synthesizer, unpowered, unpatched, and entirely unused, all session long. Not because you genuinely do not want it in the session, because there is simply nowhere physically left on the back panel to plug it in. So you route around the problem again. Repatching mid-session is not really workflow at all. It is an interruption, simply wearing workflow's clothes. None of that is actually inevitable, whatever it genuinely feels like at 2 in the morning. The room simply keeps growing, the interface does not. So the real question was never which interface is better. Between these two, it was only ever a question of scale. One standard held constant, two environments entirely. Every single specification you are about to hear applies equally, identically to both. These are not a good model and a better one. They are two architectures built around the exact same engine room, separated only by how much studio each one is built to carry. Both run ESS Sabre32 Ultra conversion, the ES9026 Pro chip for a verified 125 decibels of dynamic range on every single channel. Digital in, analog out, with the noise floor pushed down to a place where it simply stops being part of the conversation. That number does not move between the two interfaces, it is identical unit for unit. One is a half-rack hub built for the desk, the other is a 1U anchor built for the rack. The conversion stage inside them is exactly immeasurably the same. Both carry the same redesigned MOTU preamplifier, 74 decibels of gain, adjustable in precise 1 decibel steps at a measured minus 129 decibel unloaded of equivalent input noise, and both run CueMix 5, equalization, gating, compression, reverb, and loopback routing computed on the interface itself, not on your host CPU, which puts measured round-trip latency at a tight 2.4 milliseconds on the MOTU UltraLite-mk5 and around 2 milliseconds flat on the MOTU 828. macOS, Windows, and iOS all natively with no additional drivers ever standing in between you and the actual take. One hub for microphones, synthesizers, outboard gears, monitors, and headphones. Every one of them live in the room at once. Both ship genuinely ready to record on day one with the full MOTU software bundle already included right in the box. The MOTU UltraLite-mk5, the Agile hub, the interface built for the desk, the backpack and the stage, where the constraint has never been ambition, it has always been space. This is where 40 channels of professional conversion gets compressed into something small enough to actually fit in a backpack, without giving up a single input. Two combo inputs take microphone, line, or instrument level right on the front panel, each with independent gain, a pad, and 48V phantom power. A high contrast white OLED display shows every single channel at a glance. Microphone, line inputs, main outputs, absolutely everything. And here is the actual engineering achievement: 40 simultaneous channels, 18 in, 22 out, packed in a half-rack steel chassis you can genuinely carry with one hand. 10 of those outputs are quarter-inch TRS, and every one of them is DC coupled, so control voltage runs straight from your DAW into a modular synthesizer. A full ADAT optical bank, SPDIF, and complete MIDI input-output, all packed onto a chassis small enough to actually travel. In practice, that simply means the desk stays fully patched permanently. Everything stays connected, nothing sits in the way of the next idea. CueMix 5 runs on the desktop and on the iOS both, so the entire mixer travels with you, not with the rack it usually lives in. It is a hub small enough for the shelf and dense enough for a full session, with nothing left out to make that possible, and genuinely rugged enough to travel with, night after night, gig after gig, without ever once anywhere letting you down. The DSP travels with it, equalization, dynamics, reverb, and loopback all on board, zero latency monitor mixes, without ever touching your host CPU. Optional rack ears convert the entire unit in seconds flat for the day the desk eventually becomes a proper rack. The MOTU 828, the studio anchor, the room that finally stopped growing sideways and started growing straight up. This is the interface for a room that has outgrown the desk entirely and now needs a full rack unit of dedicated conversion, talkback, full monitor control, and 2 fully independent headphone mixes, all on the front panel, exactly where a tracking session can actually reach them. 60 simultaneous channels, 28 inputs, 32 outputs, moving from USB 3.2 generation 1 at a genuinely full 5 gigabits per second. A single USB-C connection carries the entire channel count both ways. There is simply no bandwidth ceiling left to work around. The rear panel is where the MOTU 828 truly separates itself. BNC word clock, 2 full optical banks and dedicated preamp inserts, 8 fully balanced TRS inputs, 8 balanced TRS outputs, and 2 balanced XLR main outputs. And those inserts matter. A dedicated send and return on every preamp lets you patch a compressor across the microphone channel before it ever reaches conversion. 2 full ADAT optical banks add another 16 channels of input-output alongside SPDIF, dedicated word clock and complete MIDI. A 3-inch 24-bit RGB display meters every single input and every output, all in full color at a glance. Talkback, A, B and C speaker switching, mono fold down and mute. The entire control room set, built right into the hardware. Monitor groups get routed exactly once entirely inside CueMix 5 and recalled instantly every single time you reopen the session, which means every input in the room can genuinely stay live at the same time with nothing waiting for its turn to be patched in. One rack unit, front to back, entirely, every single connection within easy arm's reach. 2 fully independent headphone mixes, each one carrying its own equalization, gate, compression and reverb, computed entirely on the interface. Run the entire room from an iPad and route loopback for streaming without a second machine. Tracking, monitoring, reamping and clocking, every one of those separate jobs anchored permanently now to just one single device. And here is what every single of those specifications is actually ultimately for: the take itself. The synthesizer stays patched, the outboard compressor stays inserted, the gear finally stops being something you manage and goes back to being something you simply use. The headphone mix is right on the very first try, so the take actually lands instead of getting chased across 3 more attempts. 125 full decibels of dynamic range, independently measured and verified on both interfaces identically without a single exception anywhere. 74 decibels of genuinely clean gain, adjustable in 1 decibel steps, with a minus 129 decibel unloaded noise floor sitting quietly beneath it. 2.4 milliseconds of measured round-trip latency on the MOTU UltraLite-mk5, right around 2 flat milliseconds measured the same way on the MOTU 828. 40 channels on the MOTU UltraLite-mk5 or 60 full channels on the MOTU 828, USB 2.2 high speed or USB 3.2 generation 1 at 5 gigabits, gold plated connectors, fully DC coupled outputs and precisely synchronized clocking measured down to the individual connector identically on both units. Wherever the actual work happens to be, on the desk, in a bedroom studio or racked in a commercial one, so choose the scale that fits the room you actually have. The MOTU UltraLite-mk5 at 40 channels in a half rack chassis, the MOTU 828 at 60 channels in a full rack unit, 1 standard, 2 environments. The MOTU UltraLite-mk5 is 81,900 rupees per unit. The MOTU 828 is rupees 1,28,000 per unit. Both are market operating prices inclusive of GST, and the best price is always on the Shivansh Electronics website. Visit www.shivanshelectronics.in for current pricing, live stock and full availability on both interfaces, and follow Shivansh Electronics directly on YouTube, on Facebook and on Instagram for absolutely every new arrival. Thank you so much for your time. We will see you in the very next video.